A man who knows his own trail does not need a town hall sermon to guide him. One whisper from his gut will move him faster than 50 loud voices shouting advice. That was the kind of man Lucas Bridges believed he was. 35 years old, broad shoulders, rough hands, a temper that could flare quicker than dry grass in a Texas summer. The day he rode into Douglas Green's law office in Abilene, Texas, he thought he was there to sign papers and ride home richer than he came. Instead, he walked into the strangest test a man could face. The brass pendulum clock on the wall ticked slow and sharp. Each swing sounded like a warning. Douglas Green adjusted his spectacles and unrolled the will across the oak desk. "Your uncle left you his ranch and $800 in gold certificates," he said. "Nah, but only if you pass 2 conditions." Lucas leaned back in the wooden chair, boots stretched out. "Name them. You must raise 1 pig for 9 months, alone, no help from neighbors. If that pig dies, you lose everything." Lucas snorted. "That's it?" Douglas did not smile. "Second condition. You must live 6 months with a wife. No formal complaints filed against her. Not one." The room felt smaller. "No complaints?" Lucas repeated. "1 written complaint filed at this office," Douglas said calmly, tapping the desk, "and the inheritance vanishes." The clock ticked again. Lucas felt heat rise in his chest. A pig and a wife. That was the price of 40 acres and a future. His uncle had always believed discipline mattered more than muscle. Now the old man was testing him from the grave. Shell Lucas spat into the brass spittoon and stood. "Fine, I'll do it." That same evening, he rode southwest of Abilene to the ranch that now sat waiting on his success or failure. It was modest, a 2-room cabin with a stone chimney, a weathered gray barn, 40 acres of decent pasture wrapped in cedar fencing. It was more than he had yesterday. The next morning, he went straight to Jeremy Cobb's Feed and Supply on Cedar Street. "I need a feeder pig," Lucas said. "Healthy, hardy." Jeremy scratched his beard and led him behind the store where young hogs rooted in the mud. One caught Lucas's eye, a spotted gilt with bright eyes and steady feet. "That one," Lucas said. $12 later, he was hauling her home. He built her pen himself. Oak rails tight, cedar posts sunk deep, a shelter in one corner, a trough fed by the windmill. Standing at the fence, he watched the pig explore her new space. "Well, girl," he muttered, "looks like it's you and me." The first week went smooth. Feed at sunrise, clean pen before noon heat, fresh water twice daily. Lucas even kept a notebook. Weather, feed amounts, health signs. Routine calmed him. Then on the 3rd day, the pig knocked over her water trough and splashed muddy water across the pen. Lucas felt that familiar burn creep up his neck. His fist tightened. For a moment, he wanted to kick the fence hard enough to splinter it. Instead, he walked to the barn door where he had nailed a small wooden sign. 3 breaths before action. He stood still. 1 breath in, 1 breath out. 2, 3. The heat cooled. He walked back and fixed the trough without a single curse. By October, rain flooded the county roads and cut him off from town. Feed ran low. He improvised mash from cornmeal and oats. The pig ate it well enough. Then a buried water line froze and burst, turning the pen into mud. Again his temper flared. Again he counted. He replaced the line with a barrel and float system that worked better than before. But the real test came 2 weeks later. Lucas woke burning with fever. His head throbbed. His limbs shook. Still, he staggered outside to feed the pig. For 2 days he lay in bed, drifting in and out, On the third morning, he forced himself up and stepped outside. The pig lay in her shelter, breathing fast and shallow. 3 days without proper care had taken a toll. Lucas hitched the wagon with trembling hands. He built a ramp, coaxed her aboard with grain. Every bump on the 12-mile ride to town felt like a hammer against his skull. Manuel Coe, the town veterinarian, shook his head when he saw them both. "You're both running fever," he said. "Pig's dehydrated. You ain't far behind." He treated them both. Lucas rode home weak, but determined. The will allowed medical help, but no neighbor could lift a hand, so he built a recovery system. Shelter moved closer to the house. Dry bedding raised off ground. Water simple and easy. Feed prepared in advance. He logged her progress, even while his own hands shook. By November, the pig was thriving again. By January, Lucas had filled half a notebook and learned more about patience than any sermon could teach. 9 months passed. The pig stood sleek and strong in her pen. The first test was nearly complete. But the second test loomed heavier in his mind. Marriage. Raising a hog was one thing. Living 6 months with a wife without complaint was another matter entirely. Lucas looked out across the pasture as the windmill turned steady in the breeze. He had learned to master his temper with wood, water, and mud. Now he would have to master it with a woman. And somehow, he suspected that test would be far harder. The pig phase ended with quiet pride, but Lucas knew the harder road was ahead. A hog did not argue. A hog did not cry. A hog did not feel hurt by careless words. A wife would. Lucas rode into town wearing his cleanest shirt and trimmed beard. Word had already spread through Abilene about the strange will. Men at the mercantile nodded at him. Women whispered behind gloved hands. At Jeremy Cobb's store, Lucas asked plain, "Know any woman who'd agree to marry a rancher with rules attached?" Jeremy leaned on the counter. "Emily Guzman. Runs a boarding house on Elm Street. Practical woman. Widowed 3 years back. She knows hard work." Lucas rode there that same afternoon. Emily answered the door herself. Early 30s. Brown hair pinned neat. Blue dress, simple but clean. Her eyes were steady, not shy, not foolish. "I heard about your uncle's will," she said before he could explain. "Then you know I need a wife. And I need security," she replied calmly. "Come inside." They sat across from each other in her tidy parlor. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. Books lined the shelf behind her. "I won't be treated like a contract," Emily said. "Marriage is partnership, not paperwork." Lucas nodded. 6 months without a complaint filed. That's the rule. After that, we decide if we suit. And no rushing into things, she added. Respect comes first. He agreed. They set the wedding for March. The ceremony at Abilene Community Church was simple. Reverend Nelson Holland spoke softly. 2 witnesses stood nearby. When Lucas said his vows, his voice did not shake. When Emily promised to stand beside him, she meant it. They rode back to the ranch together that afternoon. The first week surprised him. Emily brought order to the cabin like she had run her boarding house. She organized the pantry, planned meals, kept records of expenses. She asked questions about the land and the pig without interfering. "You plan everything," she observed one evening as they walked near the pen. "Had to learn," he replied. "Discipline instead of anger," she said quietly. John, he did not argue. Their relationship moved slow. Shared coffee at sunrise, reading by lamplight, a kiss goodnight. No pressure, no complaint. Then, one quiet night, when the wind was soft and the lamp turned low, Emily reached for his hand. First, trust replaced distance. The bond between them deepened without force or fear. By April, Lucas believed the marriage test might be easier than raising a hog. Then, Emily began waking sick. At first, he thought it was spoiled food. Then she missed her monthly cycle. She was carrying a child. The news filled him with pride and fear at the same time. Morning sickness hit her hard. Smells made her rush outside. Even the scent of his work clothes after tending the pig made her pale. "I can't stand that smell," she whispered one morning, tears in her eyes. But he moved the pig pen farther from the house. He washed before stepping inside. He cooked when she felt too ill. But pregnancy brought more than sickness. Emily worried constantly about money. She counted coins again and again. "We need to save," she said. "Doctor fees, baby clothes, food." He tried to reassure her, but the small cabin felt tighter each day. One night in May, Lucas woke to cold water soaking the kitchen floor. A pump seal had burst. 2 inches of water spread across the boards. Emily stood in the doorway, hands over her mouth. "We can't afford this," she cried. Lucas felt heat rise in his chest. 9 months of discipline, weeks of careful marriage, and now this. On the kitchen table lay a folded paper, a complaint letter, unfinished. All it needed was her signature. For a heartbeat, Lucas wanted to grab it and end the test himself. No more strain, no more pressure. Instead, he walked to the barn. 3 breaths before action. He stood still. 1 breath. 2. 3. When he returned, he did not shout. He did not blame. He fixed the pump, dried the floor, replaced ruined flour, worked steady while Emily sat on the porch, fighting nausea. That evening, she brought up the letter. "I almost filed it," she admitted softly. "What stopped you?" "You," she said. "You didn't lose your temper." They sat watching the sun sink over the pasture. "Discipline isn't about controlling other people," Lucas said slowly. "It's about controlling yourself." The weeks that followed tested them harder. Summer heat turned the cabin into an oven. Emily's belly grew round. Her patience grew thin. Small irritations turned sharp. But money arguments returned. "You care more about that pig than about me," she snapped one night. The words cut deep. The complaint letter lay in the drawer again. Lucas walked to the barn. 3 breaths. He returned calmer. They talked long into the night. Not shouting. Talking. Emily missed her systems from the boarding house. The order. The structure. "Then we build systems here," Lucas said. They created routines. Early light breakfast before smells could trigger sickness. Weekly money talks. Clear division of chores. A rule to wait 48 hours before any complaint was written. It was not romantic, but it worked. By late summer, tension softened. Lucas prepared carefully for the baby's arrival. Clean linens ready. Water heating. Doctor informed. When Emily went into labor in October, he stayed beside her every hour. After long pain and hard effort, their son arrived healthy and loud. Emily held the baby close. Lucas felt something shift inside him that had nothing to do with land or gold certificates. The pig test had taught him patience. Marriage was teaching him something deeper, and he still had months left to prove it. The night their son was born, Lucas did not think about the will. He did not think about gold certificates or 40 acres. He stood beside Emily's bed while she held the baby against her chest, and for the first time since that day in Douglas Green's office, the test felt smaller than the life in front of him. They named the boy Byron. The cabin felt different after that, quieter in some ways, louder in others. The cry of a newborn replaced the grunts of the pig as the sound that ruled their days. Lucas still tended the ranch at sunrise, but now he checked on Emily before stepping outside. He warmed water so she could wash. He rocked Byron when she needed rest. He had learned that strength was not loud, it was steady. 2 weeks after Byron's birth, Lucas rode into Abilene for the inheritance review. The same brass pendulum clock ticked on the wall of Douglas Green's office. Lucas laid his records on the desk. 9 months of pig logs, health notes, feed entries, Manuel Coe's signed statements, and most important, the marriage certificate with no complaints filed. Douglas examined each page slowly. "No complaints?" he asked, without looking up. "Not one," Lucas answered. Douglas nodded once. "Then your uncle's ranch is legally yours." The words felt heavy, but not in the way Lucas once imagined. That the ranch no longer felt like a prize to win. It felt like responsibility. When he rode home that evening, deed papers tucked in his coat, he found Emily on the porch holding Byron wrapped in a soft blanket. "Well?" she asked. "It's ours," he said. She smiled, tired, but proud. The pig sold at market for $26. Not a fortune, but enough to cover the doctor's fee and restock the pantry. Lucas did not waste it. He invested it. He dug a proper well closer to the house so Emily would not have to walk far with a baby in her arms. He built a small wash house with a copper tub so she could bathe in comfort. He reinforced fences before they failed. He redesigned the pig pen into a stronger structure for future livestock. Every improvement followed one rule: fix problems before they become crises. That winter passed with Byron growing strong. Spring brought new pasture growth and quiet joy. Emily recovered fully. The cabin felt warmer, not from the fire, but from laughter. By the time Byron learned to crawl, Emily told Lucas she was carrying another child. He did not panic. He planned. They reviewed money together, adjusted feed costs, increased garden planting, added fruit trees along the south slope for wind protection and future harvest. When their second son arrived in January, loud and stubborn, they named him Rocky. 2 boys now filled the ranch with energy. Lucas often stood in the doorway watching them play in the dirt near the barn. Byron stacking wooden blocks, Rocky tugging at his mother's apron. He remembered the man he had been when he first walked into that law office. Quick temper, quick words, ready to fight the world. Now he paused before speaking, counted breaths before reacting, listened before answering. 3 years passed. The ranch expanded carefully. Cattle grazed beyond the original 40 acres. Systems kept everything running smooth. Feed stored under cover. Water lines protected from frost. Budget meetings still held every week. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived from Douglas Green. Inside was another document, and a short note written by his uncle before his death. "If you are reading this," it said, "you have proven yourself not just as a rancher, but as a husband and father." The true inheritance was never the land. It was the discipline to build something that lasts. The attached deed transfers an additional 160 acres adjoining your property. Lucas stood silent for a long moment. Emily read the paper over his shoulder. "More land?" she asked. He nodded. "What will we do with it?" Lucas looked west across the rolling Texas grassland. The boys chased each other through tall grass, their laughter carried by the wind. "We build something worth passing on," he said. They expanded slowly, never reckless, never rushed. Emily started preserving extra vegetables for sale in town. Lucas added cattle only after securing new water sources and shelter. Every step measured, every risk calculated. Years later, the brass pendulum clock that once measured his test hung on their own mantel. One quiet evening, after putting the boys to bed, Lucas and Emily sat on the porch watching the sunset stretch across their land. 200 acres now lay under their care. You remember the first day we met? Emily asked. I remember thinking this was a business deal, Lucas said. And now? Now it's a life. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Once I use my tongue on you, there's no escape, he teased softly, repeating the words he had once spoken in play. Emily laughed, the same warm sound that had filled their early courtship. I reckon I never wanted to escape, she replied. The windmill turned steady in the breeze. The cattle settled. The boys slept safe. Lucas understood at last what his uncle had meant. A pig had taught him patience. Marriage had taught him humility. Fatherhood had taught him purpose. The land had not made him a man. Choosing discipline over anger had. As the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, Lucas squeezed Emily's hand. Tomorrow would bring storms, broken fences, sick calves, and restless children. But they would face them the same way they faced everything since that first test began. With planning, with patience, and with a love built not on force, but on steady choice. The inheritance had ended. The life it created was just beginning.